So the grand jury convened by special counsel Jack Smith will meet today in Washington to continue its work on the probe into Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the legitimate results of the 2020 presidential election. It's possible the jury will vote today on whether to indict the former president. The panel normally meets on Thursdays as well, so it could be that day. Here is what former acting U.S. Solicitor General Neil Katyal had to say last night on MSNBC.
And whether it's tomorrow or Thursday, as Andrew Weissmann says, or possibly in 2 weeks, I think all indications are Donald Trump is going to get indicted. Jack Smith sent a target letter to Donald Trump last Sunday. You don't do that, particularly against a former president, unless you're pretty sure that you've got the goods.
Meanwhile, the former president, continues to fundraise off of his legal trouble. In a campaign email last night, the 2024 candidate proclaimed himself an innocent man, as you might expect, adding, quote, "Our country could truly use your support right now. Send me some money." Subtext. In another, he compared the United States under President Joe Biden to Stalinist Russia and Maoist China. Nowhere in those emails does it say that you will be donating directly to Trump's 2024 campaign. Why? Because, as the Washington Post reports, more than half of the money Donald Trump raised in the second quarter of this year went toward footing his legal bills, not the campaign itself. Again, he says he's a billionaire, asking his supporters to pay his legal bills. So, Jonathan Lemire, you are in Washington, where everyone's waiting for the potential today, maybe Thursday, could be next week. We just don't know of when this indictment could come down. Not really a question of if, given the target letter, as Neil just pointed out, we saw last week, but when.
Yeah, Willie, I'm in Washington all week, and the capital city is abuzz. There is an anticipation. This is just a matter of days. As noted, the grand jury meets Tuesdays, Thursdays. There has been certainly a lot of chatter here in the Beltway that today could be the day the grand jury votes to indict. Media trucks are lined up outside the courthouse where that grand jury has been meeting, where Jack Smith and his team have been moving in and out of for months now. What is a sprawling investigation, one that we've all sort of shorthanded as the January 6th investigation. And to be clear, former President Trump's actions that day, or should we say inaction that day, is a part of this, fueling that riot at the Capitol. There was some violence committed in his name, but it's more than just January 6th. It is the election interference investigation, a probe into Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election. It is a sprawling, massive one that is continuing. We're hearing about new people coming before the grand jury, but it does seem that we are now a matter of days before that indictment, a historic second federal indictment of a former president. And this one, Willie, that the nation is watching with bated breath because of the ramifications of the upcoming campaign. And certainly on the history books, we've never been here before. And it seems like we're in the final hours of this probe.
It really is an extraordinary moment, Mike Barnicle, in the history of the country. It already has been, with two indictments, one federal, one here in New York City. We have a trial date for the previous indictment down in Florida for the Mar-a-Lago documents case of May 24th of next year. That's on the docket. And now we may get a date coming up here in the next several weeks for another federal case that the former president could be facing while he's seeking to head back to the White House.
You know, Jonathan said we've never been here before, and in a sense that's obviously true, but in another sense, we have been here before. We've been here before when a former president of the United States was indicted a few months ago. He's been indicted how many times now?
Two, and this will be the third.
This will be the third. So not only have we been here before, this, in a sense, when you look at it and you think about it, and you think of everything we hear from all the experts we talk to, it's both predictable and yet enormously sad. A former president of the United States.
When I think we have to look at this as not simply an election process, an election campaign up until November 2024. The stakes are higher for Donald Trump. He is using the campaign platform to essentially fight these indictments and to stay out of legal trouble. This has become more of a referendum on the future of American democracy.
Yeah.
Will voters on either side accept the results of the next election when Donald Trump is telling his supporters that the election is rigged, that he was cheated in 2020? How is that going to get any better in 2024?
Well, will they accept the fact that former president of the United States could be about to go to trial?
Right. And Gene Robinson, we're going to get into the story in just a moment, but yet another of the people that was sent to the Capitol, that went to the Capitol, that heard the lie that Jonathan Lemire wrote an entire book about the election, is going to jail for more than 4.5 years. We'll have details of that coming up next. But this does get at what Elise touched on, which is, will this lie persist? Will, if Donald Trump loses the 2024 presidential election, if he makes it that far to the general, will he say he won that one? And will people learn the lesson of that? Or is this now just a piece of the Republican politic, which is that if you lose an election, just say you won and see what happens?
Well, I think we can answer that first question. If he makes it all the way, he makes it through the primary, becomes the Republican candidate, makes it all the way to the election without being, convicted and thrown in jail or having to step out of the race because of his legal troubles or whatever. Obviously, he's going to claim victory no matter what happens. He can lose in a landslide. He's going to claim that he actually won, that it was rigged. We've heard it all before. The question is whether that has diminishing currency among voters, even when we get to that point. And you have to guess that there will be a hard core of Trump supporters who will believe everything he says and believe he's being persecuted and that by extension that they are being persecuted because their leader is being persecuted. But will that hardcore shrink? Will it? And I think you have to guess that probably it will, but maybe it won't. We just don't know. We are in uncharted territory.